And we are live. So happy Tuesday, everyone. Hope you're all having a great week. Today we've got the awesome Mr. Harry Freeman on a live interview. Harry's kindly taken 20 minutes out of his day to talk to his experience, having worked with us in the 1% Blueprint. He's a couple of weeks out now. Before we jump into that, Harry, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do?
Yeah, so Harry Freeman, work at Forsyth Barnes. I'm the VP of contract recruitment for our New York office and US office.
Awesome. Busy man, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, cool. So that being said, let's sort of dig into sort of your journey having worked with us and what it all looked like. And by my accounts, I think you've smashed it and you're in a great place, but I want you'd say that, not me. So let's rewind a couple of months into the past. I think you followed me for a bit on social media, seen some bits. One of your colleagues, I think Scott, he'd worked with us historically and you'd seen the results he'd got. What was going on back then? What was your motivation for having a chat with me and, what we do in the Blueprint?
Yeah, so saw Scott Parsons. I followed you, I think, maybe at the start of the year, I think. And that's where it started going into my head that I actually want to do something. So, still a young chap, want to do something where I can feel comfortable with myself, more on a mental perspective, but also physical as well. Scott ended up doing the course and his results from it were really good. And I thought, he's nailed something. And I kind of dive deep into what he was doing and he kind of referenced yourself. So reached out to you. Didn't think of anything of it. I didn't think I was going to do it at first. I just wanted to have a quick chat with you. However, kind of what you said from our first introduction call, kind of really grabbed my attention, and the social media stuff that you've been doing over the kind of past 3-4 months or so, which I've been seeing, has really grabbed my attention as well. So at the start of it, I wasn't completely messed up or anything like this. I just knew there was a better version of Harry Freeman in me. And the biggest struggle which I've always had is holding myself accountable for kind of not work perspective things, but more the kind of personal perspective things, which can normally be pushed on anyone who's busy at work's kind of back foot and not really think about it, to be honest with you. So I wanted to be held accountable, really to be shown what to do at first, because I've never done anything like this. I've always just ate what I want, not too unhealthy, but if I fancied a burger for lunch, I'd have a burger for lunch. If I someone who's never wanted to go to the gym or anything like that, just didn't really like it. So wanted to get some insight from kind of yourself, a specialist within it, but also be able to be held accountable. So yeah, that's the reasons kind of I wanted to do the Blueprint, and yeah, that's the reason I'm here today.
Cool. And I think like you want me saying you're definitely on the younger end of the spectrum of the gents I tend to work with. But I think you kind of reached a point in your career much quicker than some of the other gents that I work with, and they might be in like late 30s, 40s, even 50s. Coming at it from a different perspective, not dissimilar. I think you said it's not like anything was on fire, but I think you'd recognised that your habits and your behaviours from a personal perspective weren't quite aligned with that best version of Harry we talked about, a better version of Harry. Like work was going really well. And I think the whole point of like setting a good foundation now, so you're not in 10 years, 20 years unpicking a load of stuff and going, oh shit, what's happened? So you've got a foundation for being your best. Does that resonate? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that was the perspective I got when we chatted.
Yeah, no, spot on. So in the intro call, everything, so even if you do this at 40, 50, or whatever the age, it's an investment for yourself. I feel like the way I thought of it was I'm getting into the shares when they're trading at 1p rather than 10p. So I've got more in return of investment straight away. And it's something which I can kind of hold myself accountable for kind of years to come. So yeah, 100%. So I wouldn't even say, I know a lot of your marketing will be within kind of the 30, 40 plus kind of years. But I think if anyone's watching this and maybe they're on the younger spectrum, 20 to 30s, it's definitely worth jumping on to, block it out whilst you can.
Awesome. And what I always say is, I think, and we'll touch on this in a second, wherever you are in that spectrum of just consciously knowing you want to be better physically, mentally, having a good foundation to take care of yourself, the demands of life might be slightly different relevant to where you're at in life, right? But actually the fundamentals of what we need to do to get the most out of yourself, I don't think there's not different. And with the work we need to do to address it is different. It's just circumstances might impact you differently, right? I think it's important to recognise. Well, let's then fast forward, Harry. Like to today, you're sat here now. Harry version 2, in my mind, bossing it. What have been your key achievements and takeaways from the process? What are your key successes from now having come through the process? And then once we outline those, maybe we'll dig into a little bit of what you've done to make that happen.
Yeah, cool. So the biggest two, well, yeah, the two things which I've kind of touched on a little bit already, but the two things which made me want to do this was one, physical health. It wasn't that I was like a huge young lad or anything like that. Like I had a belly on me, but I still do, but not as big. So kind of my physical health was one of them, but also I've never been someone around kind of like the mental health. I know it's been talked about a lot over the last kind of 2-3 years, but I've never really thought about it. But there was a few things in the exercise which I quite enjoyed, and I'll still do kind of today as well, which will maybe help me spend more time with family, friends, partner, etc., etc. So yeah, the biggest number one for me was kind of the physical health, which unfortunately now I had some clothes which are now look a bit too baggy on me, so it's cost me a little bit, but yeah, it's worked in the long run, I'm guessing.
I think that's a good problem to have, right? Just how much, like over the process, and just before we came on, you were saying you were like at the lightest you've been now, which I quite like, given that you're like 2 or 3 weeks from having finished it, and you've been able to continue running with what you got, and that's. I want to talk about this, but the whole accountability, but self accountability, and I think so it's not just you finish it, you're like, what the fuck? You can hopefully carry on, and that's the whole point. That's what we'll talk about. But yeah, how much weight did you lose overall in the process?
I think it was 11 kg in the end. I want to say I haven't got my my fitness pal up, but I
And
think it was
the
11
exact
kg
numbers
in the end.
aren't really relevant, but like that's a big chunk of change. And I think for you, especially for this process, I think that was a big element for you, right? The physical side of things was a really big thing that you wanted to address. Notwithstanding, there's lots of fundamentals that go into that. But I think that's a big box that was ticked, and you're sitting here now in a good spot. So why don't we talk about maybe some of that accountability and that self accountability? What have been the key takeaways that you've learned that's facilitated that weight loss specifically, and then I guess how do you think you're gonna be able to maintain it?
So skip back, let's say 10 weeks ago, and I said this onto the call, I was probably use a lot more swear words than I am using now, but 10 weeks ago, my accountability was absolutely horrific. Like I would say every single day for, I think it was like maybe 4 weeks before I actually had a chat with you, that I was going to go to the gym. Went to the gym twice out of them 4 weeks. So I would only go Monday to Friday, but that's 20 opportunities I could have gone to the gym. I went twice. Snoozing the alarms, I just wasn't up for it, and I never would be. And today, like I'll still do it now and then when I feel like I do need a lie in. Let's say my routine changes in the night and it's not kind of a set routine I'd normally go for. It might be that I do have that one day off, but now it's all changed a little bit. So the accountability of jumping in on kind of a weekly call with not just yourself, but all the other individuals who are joining it. All of a sudden you're like, kind of shit, these guys are smashing it and they're doing well, because all of them on the call, which I've seen, are smashing it. There's no one who has gone the wrong way. You're going to be there and you're going to have your stats from maybe week 3 to week 4, and you're going to be the only guy on the call who's not done it, and you're going to be there and you've got to say you've not done it because you can really see that you haven't done it itself. And it was just that 8 weeks of building that accountability into myself. It's felt like it's kind of built in. Therefore, when I like going back to what I first said, normally I have a burger at lunch if I fancied a burger, or I'll go to KFC, etc., etc. Now it's healthy meals at lunchtime. If I want to fancy a dinner and I'm going out with a partner, you can still do that. It's not that you're on this strict, you're only eating veg, you're only eating veg for dinner, you're only eating veg for lunch, you're not having breakfast, anything like that. It's not like that, which I thought I'd really struggle with. It's more this flex if you do things the right way, kind of maybe in the week on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can have that flex on the Friday, Saturday, which I really like as well. So I feel like that accountability has just generally been built in to me from yourself, but also the individuals who are on the call as well. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think building accountability isn't just shouting at you and calling you a dickhead for not doing stuff, because I mean that'll work, but then if you're not in the process and then the person isn't there to call you a dickhead for not doing it, well, how sustainable is that going to be? And it's building that self accountability, and I think part of that comes from, well, if something hasn't quote unquote worked, we could call you a dickhead, or we could go, why? And you go, oh well, I was traveling X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, what could you do differently next time? Could you do that instead? Okay. And then straight away, you're not wrong and have failed. It's just like we can use that to learn and adapt. And it's that kind of ongoing questioning and looking at a problem and being, I think that builds that resilience. Whereas I think historically, you won't mind me saying this, Harry, and it's the same with a lot of the gents that I work with, be this for healthy eating, exercise, or bigger picture stuff like procrastination, being more present with families, whatever it is. Like, something they don't do it, well, then it's shit, it's all fucked up, let's just stop. It's like, whoa, no, you could say that. Or you could go, well, why didn't it happen? Oh, well, and what did your day look like before that? And what were you doing? And we take a few steps back and look at some of the bigger picture stuff, and you go, hold up a second, maybe there's a few other things we could look at so it doesn't happen in the future. But then if you're aware of that, you're more conscious of it, and then you can be accountable to yourself. You're not just bouncing around, not knowing what's going on. Does that resonate or make sense?
Yeah, no, spot on. And I guess during the 8 weeks, I'm sure a lot of individuals on the call and whoever will listen back to this, but I had 4 days in Dubai, a week in New York, and a week at Royal Ascot, Royal Ascot was just all alcohol, drink, no food. So like that was still doing like the morning exercise. I was still jump on with that. Dubai was just 4 days of drinking as well, and New York was work. They were all with work, but for different things. So even if you are busy and you're traveling and stuff like that, it's just small tweaks within your day which matter. It's not when you join Luke's kind of program, it's not like you're going to just be set doing this thing. You're not going to have any time focused on work. You're not going to be allowed to travel, tell your boss you're cancelling it. Like, you can still do all of these things.
Well, for me, that's super important as well, because outside of the 8 weeks we work together, you probably want to go to Royal Ascot again. You probably want to go to Dubai and have fun again. You'll have to travel to work. And so if you haven't got a framework that works for those events, well, then you're fucked. So some people start and go, oh, well, I've got this coming up and I've got that, and good. Like, do you think that's not gonna happen outside of us working together? And like you said there, it has to be flexible. Will how you approach Ascot be different from your normal life? Well, of course it will. But then, as long as you've got a bit of doing something, and then you know how to roll into your quote unquote normal after, well, then you're fine. And that's what gives you the resilience. And net result for you, weight loss was a big thing. You had all that happen in 8 weeks, and you still lost 11 kilos. And it's because you were able to be flexible with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. So yeah.
So what would you say then, Harry, if we look at like overall the process, what has been your main takeaway from doing the whole thing, if there was one thing?
That it's possible. And that sounds so broad, but my mentality before, and I'm sure a lot of mentalities kind of going into the thing, is I've been doing this I've had the same lifestyle for the last 20 years or so. Even if I get shown a different way, it's not going to block out kind of the 20 years of unhealthy eating or unhealthy kind of behaviours which have been installed in me. You'll be really, really, really surprised of how 8 weeks can change you so much. Like, my mentality is completely shifted. And like, we were having a laugh in the office the other day about it. Like, I've said I've been here for nearly 3 years now, and I think not all Mondays, but most Mondays I'm on a diet now. I'm on a diet. It gets to like Monday afternoon. What do you want for lunch? I'm not on a diet anymore. I'm going to start next Monday. You can't start on a Tuesday, can you? A diet, so you've got to start on a Monday. So it'll be next Monday, and that's happened, and that's routine's been following on. However, these 8 weeks, I thought, as soon as I ever get out the 8 weeks or during the 8 weeks, I would just kind of fall back into that mentality, because it's been X amount of years who I've had this kind of lifestyle for. It has shifted. And that's the big thing for me, is my mentality I didn't think has shifted. And that's a key learn for me, which it actually has.
That's awesome. It's interesting you say that, Harry, because I was chatting to a gent last week, Andrea. He just did a call just like this. And I asked him a similar question, and they said, what was the most surprising thing? And I've actually, Andrea, he was 18 months after finishing with us, so quite a long time. It's been a while to have the conversation. And he said exactly what you said. He was like, what is biggest surprising thing? He went, did it work? And I was like, great. Well, for me, that's validation, which is great, which is, I think you're right. 8 weeks isn't a huge amount of time. And if again, you're a bit younger, but you like, not what I'm saying, you had a lot of habits and behaviors that weren't serving you, weren't happy with. There's other guys that have like got 10, 20 years worth of habits like that, right? How's that going to happen in 8 weeks? But actually, if you do it in the right way with the right approach, you totally can, right? And that's you're the net result of what we sat here today. Well, look, mate, notwithstanding, I know you're a very busy man, so I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you for today. It's been really helpful. I hope anyone watching has got a lot out of this. It's been really beneficial for me. Before we get off, Harry, if I was to say, let's say someone's watching this like you were, a couple of months back, maybe not feeling the best, know that they're not quite where they want to be physically, mentally, never worked with someone like me, a coach, a process like this, that they're a bit on the fence as to, is it really worth it? What should I do? What would you say to someone who's kind of in two minds?
Do it. So if they're on the fence, let's say there's an individual who's really, really kind of keen on doing it. There's someone who's on the fence. This was me 8-10 weeks ago, like right off the page over here. Like, I'm not doing that shit. I don't believe in it. I don't think it's going to work. And now I'm like here. So yeah, 100% do it. Luke's a great guy. It's only 8 weeks, 8 weeks, which can change kind of not just your life over that 8 weeks, but also change kind of your habits over the next kind of 10, 20, 30 years. It's an investment which will definitely serve you, but also your family well as well, because it's all around kind of family orientated and obviously work orientated as well. So yeah, I'd 100% jump on and yeah, get your card out and get paying.
Awesome. Thank you, Harry. That's an endorsement if I've ever heard one. So thank you, mate. Again, thanks for your time, Harry. You know, you're a legend. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. And it's just amazing to see the results you've had. And like I say, there's a process that you go through that I help that. But ultimately, you're the one who's done the work and you're empowered in where you're at. So that's, you know, as a coach, that's what I love. So well done, mate. And it's been a pleasure. So thank you. Anyone watching, if you are interested, you know, anything that we chatted about resonates, you'd like to have a conversation to see how we can help, drop a note in the comments or send me a DM and we can arrange a chat. On that note, Harry, thank you again. Have a great week, guys. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Cheers. Thank you.
Excellent. Cheers, Luke. Thank you.